Welcome to the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority special meeting agenda. Today's day is Tuesday, June 14th. It is 5:30 p.m. I'll go ahead and take roll call. And we have myself, Mayor Javier Moreno, Mayor Pro Tem Camilo Garcia.
Here.
Council Member Raul Ureña.
Here.
And I believe Council Member Roy Romo as well as Council Member Herrera Fernandez are excused today.
I have a comment from Councilmember Fernandez.
Okay.
She says she excuses herself from attending today's meeting because she was not aware that the meeting was taking place until the agenda was published and she was scheduled to be out of town.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you. Call to order. Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to AB 361, approved by Governor of California on September 16, 2021, and some or all of city council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference. Pursuant to Imperial County Public Health Department guidelines, city council meetings are now open for public attendance at 100% capacity of the council chambers. Public participation will continue to be available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the meeting via live stream at http://communityspectrum.org live at 6:30 p.m. or via the Calexico City Hall Facebook page at www.facebook.com/City of Calexico CA. Members of the public will be able to make public comments in the following ways. In-person comments. Submit public comments via email by 2 p.m. on Wednesday, June 14, 2022 to our city clerk at ggarcia@calexico.ca.gov or via fax to 760-768-2103. You may also make public comments via Zoom from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or Android device. Please click the URL to join. The telephone number to dial is 1-669-900-6833. The webinar ID is 865-997-5929, and the passcode is 260464. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please have a seat. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Move to approve the agenda.
Okay. Second by Mr. Ureña. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Now we have discussion and potential action items. Number one is proposed annual budget to fiscal year July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable City Council and Mayor. Tonight is the introduction to the budget for the 22-23 proposed budget. We've, after hard work and a lot of time, we've come to you with the budget. Now it's the opportunity for the public to hear what we have proposed, have the conversations, and for that we have our finance director here to make sure she answers any of the questions that you guys may have on it.
We'll do it once before. Huh? Yeah, it's for this. Should do it, might as well get her out of the way. Yeah. We do have one public comment.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roma.
That one, think that one might work now.
I think we're using that one because that wasn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, I want to say that we may have fixed that one already, so it should be good. Just in the event that somebody needs to use it, like Dylan.
Good afternoon. My name is Norma Aguilar, 839 Heber Avenue. I come to you to make an appeal and also commend you. First, I want to commend you for taking the initiative to redirect how the Measure H Oversight Committee function is. For many years, it has not been transparent. It has not been fully explained to the citizenship. As you know, I've spoken out and over and through about this, and I commend you for redirecting the direction that this council, this city was taking with Measure H. Having said that, I want to appeal to you that to please start finding sources that are other than Measure H. Today I had the pleasure and honor to meet with the finance manager and Ms. Mayor, Assistant Mayor. And some things were explained to me, but it's not enough to explain it to me. We have to explain it to our community. Because right now I can tell you that there is a lot of mistrust because of how things have operated and how, in essence, this ordinance, this tax has become a source of what would sarcastically be called a slush fund for the city. And that's not what the intent was, or at least, I'm gonna take that back. That's not how it was sold to the community. The community believed that it was just a repetition of the previous version of the ordinance or proposal, the Measure H tax thing, and it isn't that yet. In any time, a city council, depending on what the environment, the leadership is, you know, it will go into that. I know, and it was pointed out to me that it does encompass how it's funding those things, but it's been taken out of the hands of the people, and that's what I want to caution you on. You know, you've stepped up, continue stepping up, and I know there's money that was not spent well, and we have to acknowledge that and say, okay, but we're doing something about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Our next speaker is Ismael Arvizo.
Hello. Oh, buenas tardes, council. Is it good? Can you hear me? Okay. See, so I'm here to talk about budget porque right now I just came walking from SDSU coming out of work, and I saw a man like laying down in front of City Hall on the right wing, just sleeping, you know, because we have a lot of homeless population. He had no shoes. He was just wearing dirty socks, and he was sleeping under the sun. So that's one thing. Just yesterday, I was at Heber Park, the Heber Park that's gonna be renovated, and there was a man that was also sleeping in the grass, very peaceful. Y se prendieron los sprinklers, so like he had time to get up and move, right? But it's a thing I see very, very commonly, where people are trying to rest, be in a safe place where they can actually like recover their energy in this hot, extremely hot environment we live in. So my question, or my proposal, más que nada, is like, how can we put cooling stations and safe sleeping locations for people that need it, right? Y pues me dio coraje entrar and be in such a good mood, you know, because I know people, I have friends here and coworkers, and it's like, there's this man sleeping outside in the sun just while we're out here in the AC, a gusto. in cooling centers. I know cooling centers it's a huge talk. It's a very controversial topic to many people, not others. But we're in the grassroots organization side. We're trying to make a more accessible water stations where people can refresh, hydrate, and recover their energy that gets taken away by the sun. So I know there's a lot of money around here, and water bottled with ice I know there's some ice machine somewhere around here, so we can make something work. So I'm asking for the budget to be for a small percent. You don't even need that much in reality, because we're talking about millions of dollars of infrastructure. When for cooling centers, we just need resources, más que nada, and a space to put those resources in. So I know the Kiki Camarena Library used to get used like that, the community center, and other buildings, but I know downtown is where it's needed. Why do we know this? Because it's where we see the need for it, right? We don't have to put it in the Kiki. Pues maybe los estudiantes que sí lo ocupan, but más que nada there's people dying in the streets. And I don't know the statistics right now. I know last year we had 23 people that died because of the weather conditions. So, and I always see, whenever I'm up here, I always see the projector. But behind that projector, or that screen, más que nada, it says we have to accommodate to everyone equally and serve the whole population that's around here. So this is not much to ask for. It's just to save lives, first of all. Second of all, just to keep our community in a healthy state. Porque si no tenemos agua, el agua es vida. So, and I know there's some water fountains that are not turned on, or if the ones that are turned on, it's just nasty water with weird smells coming out of it. And it all goes back to the bathroom and like hygiene and like things that need to be brought in through the city. Because I mean, as I'm speaking from Calexico and Exchange, because Calexico and Exchange has been trying to support the community that needs it. We have a community fridge downtown in 2nd Street that gives free water, free food for anyone that needs it. We can't be the only ones doing that. Like, sadly, we wish we could. If we could put 10,000 fridges, we would. But that's where the city would really help, you know. So let's try to work something out. I know Blanca is also interested, Calexico Wellness Center, very big advocates for the health in downtown. So I think we should look at the budget a little bit more and see where we can move some money around, because we need it, más que nada. And I'm scared that it's already getting super hot. We all get mad walking to our cars nowadays. So I need that first step for the city to take, so we can all help out each other. So there's that. And also, I'd like to talk about the budget for the REACH grant for the Rio Nuevo. I know, I forgot his name, Angel, or the man in charge of the budget. I'd like to know what committee or what group of people are overseeing this budget use or this spending, because I'm really interested into that, and I'd like to help. So, and I know I have a lot of people in my group that would like to help about how that budget is being used. But yeah, more than anything, it's the water, the need for water, and safe spaces for people to relax, sleep. I know there's a lot of homeless population that are not going to go into the community center or Kiki Library because they don't feel comfortable being there, because they respect the community around them. And if we can help them out by giving them a more accessible way for them to reach that location, or that location to reach them, first of all, I think we could do some magic out here. And it's not hard. It's just putting the money that side, you know? And no es tanto. So we can start conversation, pero más que nada, we got to get this done ASAP. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, Council and from the public. This report is an introduction for the 22-23 proposed budget that we have put together to present to you tonight. And I just want to say, after this presentation, you will be having department heads hearings that will be proposing their own, and they'll be giving their explanations as to their needs. And you'll have plenty of time to ask them questions to themselves or to the finance department. before we actually adopt the 2022-23 budget. With that said, Gabby, can you change the... As you may see on this chart, the citywide budget, the proposed budget authorizes 162 million in annual spending. 117 million is for capital budget, and provides significant investments in utilities, streets, parks, and infrastructure. If you see on the general fund, it's 18 million plus dollars that we're proposing for this new budget. And enterprises, other operations, it's 20 million plus, debt services, 6 million plus, and capital improvements, 117 million plus. And on the enterprise, other operations, the ARPA money is allocated in that. The budget highlights for this 2022-23 budget, it's with the general fund, like I said, $18 million. And it's a 23 budget is balance and fund balance reserves maintained. These reserve policies collectively move the city toward the best practices established for local governments. On the Measure H, it's at $3 million. You may see that in 1999, the reserve policy faces a 10% annual revenue. On this budget, you'll see that within the 6-year projected, we will get to that 10% annual revenue. Also, on June 8th, we met and sat with the Measure H committee, and throughout their presentation, the recreation came and they gave their proposal of their needs for recreation. We had started with a $50,000 proposal that funds could be used, and they recommended us to have $100,000 put aside for recreation programs, which on the budget, that's what you'll see. That we changed that, and instead of being in a 5-year projected plan, it will be in a 6-year, but to get to the 10% annual revenue. On the capital programs, 117 million, and this is mainly based throughout grants and on the New River Reach, which the gentleman is interested, the Heber Park, and also the ARPA. On this graph, you may see the general fund balance trend. As Norma was mentioning for the Measure H, we did have to use some of the money in the 2015 when some expenses were overused, some money was overexpended, and we did have to use those Measure H monies. But as you can see, the trend from 2020 to now, we do have a reserve, which currently is 45 days, and with our projected plan for 5 years, it will go up to 60 days. Their proposed budget expenditures with its available revenues, as you can see on this graph, the green line is the revenues that we currently project and have. The red line is the expenditures that we are projecting, and the dotted red line is the department's request, which it totals to more than $3 million of expenditures. And if we were to implement all those, they would put us back on the deficit. So we had deferred them.
Question on the department request. What are those? Are those staff, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, mainly the main concern for the departments is staff.
Okay.
But on some other graphs that you'll be seeing,
Yeah.
you'll be seeing what they requested.
Yeah, that's what I've seen, but I just wanted to know if those are mainly staffing levels or anything else, because we have also capital improvement that has been listed in the budget, and that there is a lot of need for that too. But again, I just wanted to clear that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Their main requests have been its staff.
Okay.
On this graph, this might help you understand, Mr. Garcia, regarding the staff. They are requesting for this new budget, they are requesting 28 positions, and which currently we are deferring until we receive the revenues on a quarterly basis to see if we can implement some of them. We did put one position for the planning and building department so they can bring more revenues to the city. That position we did include, but there's 28 others that they are being requested and we're deferring as of right now. And as you may see, on as you may see on 2015, when that money was overspent, you could see the difference of the employees, the staff that we had, and for 2000, that's what, if we were to get them, that's what we would be going back to 2015. As you may see, the police department at 2015 had 52 staff, and they currently have 43. As well as the fire, they had 30 staff members, and currently they have 28. And for the other programs, we had 33, we currently have 26. So we do understand, and we know that we do need these staff to accommodate for the community needs. But at this point, with the revenues and to be on the balanced budget, we currently have to defer them.
Which position is in the budget from planning?
It's like a 0.5. It's that engineering technician.
And
Yes.
that's the only one.
Currently, yes.
Okay.
Gabby, this is the long-term operating debt for all funds, and as you may see on the gray area for 2000, from the 2023, 22-23 to 26-27, the main operating debt that we have is the retirees, the unfunded retiree and medical. And to address this obligation, we are looking into to do model unfunded liability through a model similar to the CalPERS pension model. I'm proposing a resolution to direct the city manager to establish a section in 115 trust with the objectives of smoothing the growth of annual retiree medical costs and investing funds for the long-term growth with investment income to buy down the city's cost of benefits and to amortize the liability over a 30-year period. Because as you may see, the main expense for the city is the retiree and the unfunded liabilities. This is a graph that establishes for the 5-year projection that we've been saying about the revenues and the expenses. As you may see, the green line, it gives us a revenue with a 2% annual graph that we are projecting. And the red line, those are the expenditures, including for the CalPERS and the medical. And then you may see, if we only get the 2% annual projection, we would not be able to cover our expenditures. And that being said, to target this, we would need a 900,000 plus per year to be able to keep up with the growth and to be able to maintain the staff that we currently have. On this graph, you may see where our revenues come from. Most of our revenues come from the property tax and the sales tax, which are our main source of revenue. Currently, the property tax is 34% and sales tax is 27%. The general fund revenues have returned and they have grown, and it has passed the pre-COVID period. And so, as you may see, we are trending to a better for the revenues. On this graph, you may see that the majority of our expenses for the general fund is salaries and benefits. It's up to 77. If you combine the salaries and benefits plus the CalPERS unfunded liability, it equals to 77%, which is the majority of our budget. So we don't really have that much of a gap for the operation and services budget. So being said, that is why we have to be very careful as to what we propose and we give. As you may see on this general fund expenditures by program, you may see that most of the expenditures that we currently have, it's on safety, police, and fire. Putting them together, it equals to 63% of our budget. It goes to the safety. And then on the line, you can see by detail, by department, how the budget is being proposed. On this graph, you may see how we had our projection for 21-22 for the expenditures, and we've listed what the departments have requested and what they've asked. You may see we also included a 3% CPI for materials and services because we know that everything is going higher. Everything is going high. The prices are going high, so we did estimate a 3% for all the operational and services expenses. You may also see that there's some other adjustments that they have requested, and we had to remove. We removed them because we currently have some revenues that we'll be able to add for the 22 budget as one-time items for capital. On the bottom, you can see the program additions by department, and this is what they're requesting. For example, police is requesting operating contracts of more of 150,000, and you can see the line as what they requested, each department what they requested, which totals up to 456,000.
So, Sandy, going back to the previous slide, I'm sorry, looking at those numbers, so we can just go back to the previous slide. So, what we see, and you pointed out, police and fire being the two biggest, investments of our budget. And I say investment because rather than spending, I like to say investment because we're investing in our services and our people. Now, how much of this, and maybe this is a question to dig deeper, it's coming from overtime, it's coming from, because we know that we have very few, whether it's PD or fire, or both actually, staffing levels, or very low staffing levels, which causes to have overtime, and that goes up in our cost. So how much of that, and maybe just really looking to bring staffing levels, also helping alleviate, some of the challenges that they have as far as, working, too many hours. Yes, they get compensated, but then also they get overworked. So maybe that's something that we can capitalize in helping them out, but then also maybe getting to certain number or the numbers of staff where we need to have more. And maybe, that the amount of money that we invest in these two areas might not change, but at least on the staffing levels, we can put a little more people in there. So I see that there's, also a substantial amount in OT. Maybe that's something that we can look into. In looking at your numbers also as you go to your presentations. And then also, if you can just tell me, the next biggest investment is, I think it's 13% on your admin, non-department. What that entails, what staffing or staff or operations, what is that comprises?
The admin non-department?
Yes.
That's, for example, finance, city managers department,
Okay.
human resources.
Okay, so that's,
And in our department, that's where we allocate for the for our,
so that's pretty much kind of like City Hall here,
yes,
Okay.
correct.
including us too, right here? too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yes, and on the admin non-departmental, it does include, if you see the difference, it also includes the deferred for the commissioners to get their stipend, and also for the deferral that they requested for you guys.
yeah, yeah. So, on that, if I can just, maybe, when you do your presentation, maybe if you can include maybe who's who. And I know some of these are self-explanatory, right, Public Works, but then on the admin department, just say, well, everybody here at City Hall, just to have an idea. I
Okay.
think it gives a little bit more, a better understanding.
Okay.
And maybe some ideas how to, maybe offer suggestions or really kind of look into making sense how we are investing, how we are spending, our funds. So,
Okay.
thanks.
And and as how I had mentioned earlier, that we had taken off some of the department's request. This is the one-time items allocated for the surplus for 2022's monies that we're projecting we will receive for the revenues. We did sat with the departments, and these were the priorities that they had, and which we believe we can cover for the 2022 surplus. And some of them are, for example, the vehicles that they haven't been changed. Some of them are from 1995, 2010, so we really are in the need of replacing those vehicles for the facilities, public works, fleet. Also, the community center, the lighting, because it's pretty dark when the time changes, so that was their priority, which we can do at a one-time purchase. The fire radios. The ones that they currently have are going to be obsolete beginning next year. So we thought we are putting them as a one-time purchase because we are in need to purchase them. And the fire hoses, well, they need their fire hoses to be in a good standard so they can use them when they have the fires. And also the police vehicle, that was an item that was given to you on our third quarter report, that we had stated that we were going to keep until this last report to pay for them, since they have already been, the city council had already awarded the contract, and we've already paid those cars, and we're putting them in this one time.
So on that, my comment on that also, I know we need to replace a lot of the fleet, or at least some of the basic,
Yeah, the same, yeah, and they're only the basic
trucks.
ones, the ones
So-
that are really in need.
To me, as I was looking at the warrants also that we're gonna approve tomorrow, on our, agenda, I see that, we also pay for a lot of parts, a lot of maintenance. And I think we really need to look at, the fixing what is costing us to upkeep these cars or these fleets versus maybe looking into replacing with that, because to me, it doesn't make too much sense, having something that is probably beyond the age of service and keep on putting money. So maybe we can look at, I remember years ago that they were looking at maybe leasing. I know sometimes it's not cost effective or it's not something that you can do in certain equipment, but if we can just look at certain options where we need to replace, and this is not something that we can put off. I mean, we can't have, our staff, working with, equipment that is not, up to the task that they need to perform. That's one thing. Another thing also is that, what I keep on seeing is that we're putting as options, but something as a fire hose. I mean, I don't think that should be an option.
Yeah, well,
You know.
these one-time items, we are proposing to council that we should do for 2022, and that
Okay.
is replacing those vehicles. But then again, we are proposing this to you. The departments will be giving their hearings, and it's going to be up to you if you want to keep these proposals as what we are giving to you, or you want to make changes.
Yeah, and as a suggestions going back to, what I want to see, kind of an explanation of from programs who's there, who's, what do we have, positions that had been kind of like funded but not been filled, and we have been able to, save that money. And then also going back to this list of items that we need to consider, not as an option, but as a need, that we need to make sure that we fulfill. Look at what I suggested at the expenses that we're making on a monthly basis. That really, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. Keep on just paying for repairs, buying parts, upkeeping something that, again, in the long run, is costing us more. So, if you can just look into that and come back and say, this is what is costing us for keeping a, 1995 truck, that's an example. It's not
Yeah.
that.
And that is something that I'm pretty sure that, for example, on these vehicles, Lily Falomir will be preparing for you in her budget hearing. I'm just putting what we.
Correct. You're just
Yeah.
giving out a kind of like a very
Yes,
general
and
presentation.
each department, they'll be able to give you more detail, and she will be, for example, on this case, she'll be able to tell you exactly why she is requesting these vehicles to be placed on this one-time purchase for 2022.
And that's the type of report that I'm looking for,
Yes,
at least for my benefit.
yes, you'll be receiving that from each department
Thank you.
on the budget hearings.
Vehicle right off the bat, and I think it kind of goes to address what you were bringing up about the cost of repairs and how it just doesn't make sense. All of these vehicles, every vehicle that we buy, even if it's a police car, because there's electric police cars now, the electric Mustang Mach-E, todos estos, they should just be budgeted instead of 30,000 or 40,000, bump it up to 50,000 so you can just get an electric F-150. You won't even have to change the oil on it. Every year you're gonna save at least $5,000 to $10,000 just on the gas, and it's just gonna pay itself. I firmly believe we should not be buying a single gas car unless it's a fire truck or an ambulance. It doesn't make sense financially. So starting with this budget, we should go back and make sure that every one of these trucks is 50,000, because that's the price of an electric Ford F-150 or an electric Silverado, and that'll just solve all of our problems, and those things will pay themselves within 3 years. So it's like we didn't even have to pay for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's $100,000 right there. The park light replacement and the park improvements, off the bat, they should be on the ARPA fund coming out of the park allocation. So you have another 32,000 on this general one.
Which one was that one?
Los de los parques,
Oh,
lights and
the
improvements, just out of ARPA, the park ARPA allocation. So you have another 32,000, probably to pay for the difference between gas and electric, and then that will pay itself. And then we don't even have to worry. And then if there's like any extra money, we go back into the fleet and just do the same thing with the gas cars. Replace them so they can start paying themselves. If you agree.
Well, and again, we're getting into specifics, but if we can just, we're just looking at, for now,
The proposals,
yes,
Yeah.
proposals, but looking at options, what could be cost effective. And, at least having the essentials, I'm not even asking for having more than what we can afford. Of course, I wouldn't recommend it, I wouldn't go for that. But having the essentials, because that's what we're lacking, the essentials, investing in that. So whatever options we have, I think that they need to be explored. They need to be also looked at, at every department. And of course, we have the needs versus the wants, and maybe even the, ones that we want for Christmas, So, but I think all of these things are needs rather than wants. We don't have a lot of wants. We have a lot of needs. So if we can just prioritize also on the needs, just bring it, and we can look at, whether it's ARPA, whether it's anything else that we might have. I think it's on the table, and we need to look at that, and we need to make sure that we start investing those monies, because they're sitting there, and I think they have to be put to work. So we approved them about a couple of months ago, a little bit more. So, and I have yet to see some expenditures or some investments, excuse me.
So I have something, just to piggyback on Mr. Ureña's interesting proposal for your electric car. I think heading towards the future, right, we can change the fleet to that. I wonder if we've ever benchmarked, why do other municipalities are doing that? Are they changing their fleet to electric? That means that California is going eventually that way.
Well, this is most definitely something we can look into, make sure
Yeah.
the risk versus the gains, and yeah, we can look into that as an option.
Because we have more electric cars coming down here. That seems to be the trend now. So replacing that with electric cars, it's like a noble
Yeah,
gesture.
we just gotta make sure that the lifespan of the vehicle is the same as a regular gas vehicle. Make sure that they carry the weight of the equipment, the driving ability. And obviously, we know about the gas vehicles. That's always been our priority or our choice, because just we have the history of the performance. It's not to say the electric cannot do the same, but we just want to make sure that we examine it first before we start making that decision.
And there's also incentives, right? We get incentives from the state for,
Yeah, there's
Okay,
incentives, and I'm sure government is able
Yeah.
to apply for this.
Yeah, we will look into it. And if maybe not all of them, we can do a couple to start off with and see how that works, But we'll look into this.
Yeah, definitely the new ones for sure. And I know that we're gonna get into specifics soon, so
Right.
I won't spend
Right.
too much time. But another crazy idea when it comes to the police vehicles. So that's $210,000. It's either gonna come out of the general or it's gonna come out of ARPA, pending what is being reviewed with the bid and everything. Say that everything's okay and we have to buy the cars. They're already here. We have 4 gas-powered police vehicles. Those are not leased; those are purchased, right?
Right.
Is there a market for us to essentially venderlos and then just buy the electric ones? Because I think it's fine, but it's another one of those things to just get rid of them and start getting the savings of the electric.
So obviously we can get rid of them, right? That's selling them is not the issue.
Okay,
It's the money that we'd get in return.
of course.
We're looking at maybe a quarter of the value is what we would get for those vehicles.
Oof.
So we're not looking at, or we're going to actually be losing money if we choose to sell them. And the reason I say that, these have 0 miles. They have all the equipment on it already. They have all the labeling. It's been out of the car lot for almost a year and a half now, or about a year. So it obviously loses value as soon as you drive off the lot.
A lot.
So to me, that wouldn't be a good option. I think those ones that we have, we get those ones. And then remember, we have other vehicles that we have yet to purchase, and perhaps 1 or 2 of those can be electric, or we can at least look at the options of what we can do with those ones. But as far as these ones, I think those have to be used as is right now.
Well, I think for now, we just need to analyze, maybe, like you said, little by little, just try probably 1 or 2 as you transition, because with that also, you need to have infrastructure. You need to have,
Right.
charging stations, and that can cost a pretty penny also. So with the purchase, you need to make sure that you budget for that too.
Yeah, and it goes out to like planning operational techniques that need to change, because we got to make sure that the car is charged for the very next shift. There's a lot of, there's stuff that can be done. Obviously, I'm pretty sure there's police departments out there using them. They may not be frontline units, responding units. It could be, for other options, but with something that we can look into.
Sure.
And what I would suggest, maybe look into some grant monies, as this is still, from what and the intern chief was here, this is something that, not too many police departments have adopted. I've seen that they have probably put a couple of, cars, into their fleet, a few, to try them out. But it is true. With electric, you do have to have a lot of infrastructure. You need to make sure that, you are transitioning to that too. But again, not knowing the reliability on that and the cost in that type of use. I mean, for personal use, I can tell you that, I mean, it's one of the most wonderful things, and especially now with the gas prices too. I mean, that's a huge savings, but that's the personal use. Now, with something that you're going to be driving 24/7, I mean, we don't know. They haven't been tested, at least that here. But maybe trying, one or two in a different environment, not so much probably PD, just to see how, they respond. And continue to see if we can find monies through grant opportunities and transitioning. And I know that the state is looking into, as we know, into transition into electric, by 2035, which again, it's a very tall order, but maybe there might be some opportunities there. But for now, I mean, I think, just trying it out to start maybe one or two, not so much PD, but any other type of use.
The good thing about this is that Jose Luis Olmedo from Comité Cívico designated Calexico as the first city to get the electric vehicle chargers. So we should be getting 7 electric car chargers around the city, including one at City Hall, which is
Yeah, but
amazing.
Again, you will have to have this in the garage, something that, and not for the public. The public is something else. With the rates to charge your vehicle also is different. It's at a different rate, rather than using the normal rate of almost 12 cents a kilowatt hour the IID charges. Now, when you go to one of these charging stations, usually it's about 29 cents a kilowatt hour, which is almost a little more than double. So, but again, we're getting too much specific. So
we'll get into that.
yeah,
For me, it's how are we going to balance the budget when 3% it's expenditures when inflation is 8%? That's an interesting question. I mean, we talk about other things, but providing alternatives. But with inflation at 8% and we're expenditures 3%, what are we doing to create more revenues, specifically for the fire and police? That's an interesting question.
which comes to the warning also that we're getting on these numbers. I mean, what I heard is that in order for us to keep this level of, staffing levels, the money that we need to generate, and that's why, I'm being very cautious, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentation to see, and I've seen the presentation, but, I want to make sure that we want to look for every little penny that we can find. That's why I'm talking about, I know that we have asked the departments, to look into ways to save and find monies, but how can we maximize, how can we, kind of like a stretch, more than we already did, but continue to stretch the dollar, right? Because with these numbers, they keep on going up, they don't go down. I remember when Ms. Myers was here a few years ago doing a presentation. She was also using the word caution, for the council members that were sitting, a few years back, and we're still finding ourselves in that situation. So yes, things have improved, but the word caution still exists. So that's why we need to make sure that we look at the expenditures, we look at the investments, we're looking at the requests, and make sure that we're able to afford these things, we're able to keep up with our expenditures, with our obligations, with our all retire, everything. So again, just keep on going. I know I have more questions. We're not gonna get into details, I promise. So just keep going.
It's fine. And yes, we are concerned and we have to be very cautious. And that's why we also, like I had mentioned before, that's why we looked for this model of CalPERS for the for our retirees, for our unfunded liability, because we know that expenses are going high. Medical insurance is going very high. So that's why we are looking for other ways to help us. And but we do. Unfortunately, we do have to keep saying that we have to be very cautious. And that is why, as I present more, you'll see why we are unfunding a lot of the requests from the departments to keep that cautious in our budget and have a balanced budget. On this slide, you can see the general fund unfunded department request. Most of them, like I had mentioned, is on salary and benefits with 28 positions, 27.5 positions across all departments, which is a little bit more than 2 million plus. The operating cost is for 220,000. And I mean, as you can see, there's a lot of capital costs also that we're being deferred throughout the fiscal for the 5-project plan, which is the community center entrance doors, the community center parking lot, which when you go in there, you can also see that their parking lot is really in bad conditions, and the cultural center entrance doors as well. These are our capital programs that we have budgeted. Some of them are the streets, transportation. We are continuing with the street overlays. And also we have the park improvements, which you've also mentioned that we could also use for from the ARPA money. We have the Heber Park expansion of $6+ million. And we also have the ARPA, which is 7+ that we have. Most of these are funded through grants, state and federal grants, and it's from the water and wastewater bonds. And these are just a continuation for our capital programs, which are granted through our bonds for the water and the wastewater projects. And the next steps for our budget are going to be the department hearings. We've scheduled for June 16 and June 21st. And then hopefully have an adopted budget on June 28th special meeting. These are all going to be special meetings, and I do want to thank at this time, I want to thank all the departments, all the city departments and the finance staff, because if it wouldn't have been for them, we would not have been able to have this proposal not in a timely manner, because I know we're already on June 14th. This should have been presented earlier the month, but thanks to them, we are able to present this. When the departments give their budget hearings, they're going to be giving you what their needs are or their wants, and a detailed explanation as to why. And at that time, you'll be able to have time to ask any questions, concerns to them or to myself.
Thank you. And on the previous, slide before to this one, I see that there is the water treatment and wastewater collection and treatment. What I don't see here, it may be, I don't know how we can create a line item where we do more of maybe, I guess, for lack of a better word, preventive, I guess. Well, what I'm trying to say, we usually are responsive just to when a line breaks, right? And we don't have a prevention type of program where we do an assessment. We always keep on saying the same thing, that our infrastructure it's beyond their age or time of use. Some of our, sewer lines are, 50 years plus. Some of them are, clay and when we go or when we have a water line, break, we go and we then find out that it's not just that section, that once they start exploring, they see that it's the whole line. So what I have been asking is that we need to create a preventive, approach where we develop, some sort of, preventive program and start diagnosing, the lines, and maybe instead of waiting. So, and probably you're looking at that. So, and I know this is very broad, and I'm glad, that Lily's pointing to that. So I'm really looking to have a preventive measure rather than a reactive, right? Because that is usually end up costing us more rather than going out and trying to be ahead of, before, an emergency happens. So if we can just be more strategic and more specific and putting some monies into that, and that goes for all the departments, where we can do more of a preventive, more of a, I guess we can't really foresee the future, but if we can start looking at how we can, save and strategize, plan ahead, and that's one way that, we can also maybe save some money. And that's no secret. But, I don't see a lot of prevention. And I hope that we start looking at that. We continue to maybe, HR, having, and I know that they had a great event, not too long ago, but, I know they have the wellness, having those type of, programs that will help, with our staff, with keeping them in shape or at least preventing some type of, illnesses or just keeping them active. And I know they're very active, but I think prevention and just programs that will help, be a little more strategic as to how we spend our resources, that will help. I mean, and I want to see that. And I know this is not a specific, we will get that later on, but that's what I'm looking for, in the presentations. Another thing that I didn't see here is also maybe on a need or on a want, the parking lot at the library also. I have been saying that, every time I go, I mean, I always.
I think we might get some of those at the actual department request.
Yes.
So, but I didn't see it listed here. So I don't know if, I think it was at the community center, but I didn't see that the library also. But that needs a lot of help too, the parking lot. And we can just feel that.
I think what happened on that one is we had the discussion, right? So it came down to, is it the roof that gets fixed or is it the parking lot that gets fixed?
But well, again, without getting into specific right now, but at least if we can at least fill some of those craters that we have there. I don't want to say potholes, but
I think a pothole would probably be a better word than a crater, right?
I'm just calling it as I experience it.
Yeah, as it is, right? As it is.
So, but again, if we can just look at that and make sure that we bring all of that to the table. So appreciate that. Thank you.
The community center parking lot, it is on the department request.
Yes,
it's
and I saw
unfunded.
that, but I said that I didn't see the one for the library also.
Oh, the library.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Camarena Library parking lot, that was in the original ARPA plan.
Correct.
But when it got it got cut out of the ARPA plan. I have two questions. The first one is about these fire radios from the general expenditures, and I also agree I would love to take a deeper dive into the capital budget that we don't really talk about, but it's incredibly important and there could be some savings that could improve services. For the fire radios, Chief, are these fire radios that you're buying here, are they to the same standard as what the police bought recently?
They'll meet the same need. It's a different brand, but it'll meet the same needs.
Same standard, like the new privacy.
Yes, they'll have those standards. Yes.
Okay. Same amount of radios, less radios.
It'll be less radios. We didn't. They're less radios.
How many less? Like
How many less than from
like
theirs?
half as much.
And I right off the top of my head, I don't remember how many the police department got. but I know ours is a little less than that.
A little. Serrano, ¿te acuerdas cuántos compramos? Do you remember how many radios we got from Motorola?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact number. I think it's around 30.
30 something, sí me acuerdo. And Fire, how many are you buying with this?
About 15 of them.
Okay, so about half. Okay,
About half,
so
yeah.
it's still, I mean, I have to come back to this part of the budget because this is the irritating part. And it has nothing to do with Serrano. If anything, it has to do with the previous police chief. If you're talking about buying half the radios at the same standard, that means we paid about a little bit north of $500,000 over here. It should have been closer to 200,000 if we would have bought whatever radios you're buying, if they're to the same standard and they meet the same privacy standards, because they did change. That's why we're buying the radios, and also because we need new radios. That alone is a savings of $300,000. Then the police vehicles, $210,000. Put those two together and it's $500,000 that really needed to go into the reserve, because that $500,000, well, $125,000 for Measure H, I mean, come on. Pero $500,000 into the reserve gets us out of, it helps get us out of the reserve requirement we're trying to meet with the state, our biggest goal. It helps us get into a better insurance pool to unlock other savings. This is very unfortunately something that police vehicles, that we can't really do much about, but it's irritating. And it's also irritating to know that when we purchased the ambulances, we got used ambulances, right? Did we get a used fire truck as well, or was it a new fire truck?
We haven't got a new fire truck.
Or when we did the purchase?
When we did the purchase, we got the used ambulance, yes.
Used ambulance, and the fire truck, was it new or was that used?
We haven't made any purchases on fire trucks. I know we've had fire vehicles, like the pickups. We've had those, and those are going to be new. We have yet to get those though.
Okay, so the fire trucks are going to be new.
Yeah.
Okay, good. At least the fire trucks are new.
And just to make sure we're clear, it's not the fire truck with ladder, hose, and water on it. We're talking about vehicles, just regular pedestrian. Yes, okay.
Yeah, of course. But ARPA, we put into ARPA the actual fire truck, no, with the ladder, or was that not in ARPA?
No, we did ambulances. We did 2 ambulances for those ones.
Okay, and we got them used. So going back to the police vehicles, I think ARPA, we had gotten how many police vehicles from ARPA in money? It was 700,000 or 800,000?
I don't know. I guess I can look it up real quick.
It was
I don't have that off the top of my head.
the first ARPA vehicle purchase, the police cars, because it was roughly around the same amount of everything that we give to fire. It was roughly the same amount in just cop cars to the police department. So the other part that's very irritating is, okay, when it comes to fire, you're gonna get a used ambulance. How come if you're telling me, well, you can't sell the cars because they would be sold at a quarter value if they're a year old, then damn, we should have bought them used. If we can buy a used ambulance, we can buy a used Ford Explorer that's a year old and save at least 100 to 150K. Obviously, I don't know what the market rate is when it's 1 year old, but definitely when you drive it off the lot, it's 20% off. So why does the police department get to be that irresponsible with its expenditures? Because that's $500,000. That's not okay. This is why we're in trouble. This is why we don't have cops on the street. This is why we're not at our general fund. And it's so sad that it's not even spoiled milk, it's like rotten milk all over the floor, que casi quiero llorar por ese $500,000, que aquí le decimos con toda la cara a estas gentes, hey, sorry Norma, no se puede. Hey Ismael, ese güey de afuera que se muera. No hay dinero, no hay 5,000 para tus botellas de agua. Hey Norma, sorry. Hey, sorry. No. And Serrano, this is not you. This is the previous police chief, who was very, very arrogant. Because when he came up here, he acted as if he was a mechanical expert or something. Oh no, we need gas vehicles and not the hybrid ones. Y no, porque mi tía compró un Prius y que no sé qué tanto y que blah, blah, blah. Ridiculeces. And I was promised by the last city manager that we would look into it. And I said, I trust you, look into it. You never looked into it. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the system, the bureaucracy. We never looked into it. And look at what trouble it has gotten us into. We don't feel the pain right now because blessedly we had that beautiful sales tax surplus. Pero, damn, it would have been nice to have that $500,000. And that's why this is such a bittersweet moment. And this is why the brakes had to be put on this budget. Because I'm not going to rubber stamp mistakes anymore. We're here in council, we're leaders, and we have to question those things. I can't, la señora Gaby, pobrecita, we can't do $30,000 to get her a part-time administrative assistant, but we can be irresponsible with all these other purchases, and no está bien. Her medical bills, not worth it. When she has a mental health crisis, like many employees in the city have had mental health crises. Duele con toda el alma. And that's why a budget like this is just never going to happen again. And I love and I respect the police department. I want to fund the police department, but I want to stretch every dollar there too. See? So let's move forward. Let's try to clean up the mess. I think we are doing that in the way that we're, tackling the budget this time around. But Dios, I wish we could turn back the clock.
So, you're done?
See?
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
For me, again, what are we going to do to increase revenues? We have to have a plan, and I don't see a plan. I mean, and there's just one, but I mean, we get a lot of money from all these programs and everything, but what are we going to do to increase revenues? We're going to spend over $7 million for our parks, but we can't even maintain them. We're going to buy cars, we're going to have ambulance, but we can't put police officers. We can't put firemen in there. So we need to be able to increase our revenues so we can not only fix those things, but also provide those personnel. I think well said, Mr. Garcia, well said, Mr. Ureña. We just have a plan. How are we going to increase revenues for the city of Calexico? Thank you.
If I can just say, I think, remember, I wouldn't say that we're in a mess, Raul, and I know what you can be maybe disappointed. I don't want to say upset, but disappointed. But remember, we're here, and we were part of the decision making. So, whether individuals come and present, I mean, that's also on us. Whether we ask for something to be followed through, we need to make sure that we follow through, right? We need to make sure that things get done, because that's also answering to your question, Mayor. What are we going to do? Well, we have to make sure that we follow through. We have to make sure that we lead also, that we provide direction. And it's on all of us to make sure that we find, those $900,000 that we need to have, to continue to operate. That's what is really concerning to me. Besides the other things. But what is resonating with me, and as I, maybe go home tonight, I'm going to be thinking about that. And that's where we have to strategize. Yes, we invest in, whether it's buying police cars or ambulances that are used. And yes, I would love to have everything new. I would love to have, things that are up to standard for, the staff. I always have said that, by far that the most important thing that we have here is the human capital. But for the human capital, we also have to provide the tools that they need, literally, and we're not doing that. So we can be here all 9 days, talking about decisions that have been made. But if there's no accountability, we're going to be saying the same thing, years to come. So we really need to stop and think about and start really how we're going to, get to that goal of 900,000, or maybe more than that, because I would like to see not just 900,000, but more than that. But it comes with all of us working together, and I'm glad to see a lot of department heads here and managers, but I also want to see the community, because I know and we hear it, and I feel also that's where my heart really aches when I hear about the citizens coming out and saying we need to provide cooling centers, we need to have better parks, we need to have better facilities, better streets. But this is the reality that we're looking at also. I would love to have a street that it's really nice, a park that is green, and cooling centers for everybody. But this is our reality, so we have to make sure that we strategize and we lead, and that's where we start. But first we have to look at ourselves, and rather than start pointing fingers, let's move on. Some of the individuals that were mentioned, they're not even here. So I think it's a little bit of a disservice just to dwell on that. But let's move forward. Let's make the most out of it. And moving forward, how can we find monies? How can we generate more revenue? Not find monies, but generate more revenue. And I think we have talked about that. We have talked about making investments and key positions that will generate revenue. We need to go back and look at how we do business also, how we bring and how we even collect, some of our, revenue that we need to be collecting. So that's also part of the process, automizing some of our processes. I know it's an investment, but I know that's something also that we can get a return on that investment. And that's what we need to do, be strategic, invest and project the return on that investment, whether it's automizing, investing in people, or investing in equipment. Because rather than taking 2 hours in something that will take an hour when you have the proper equipment in working order, I mean, that's something that we're wasting, time and resources. And that's what's happening right now. We're doing things manually, where we can't even transfer a phone call, without, hanging up. We're in the dark ages. So how can we be efficient? Here we are talking about the latest technology. It's great. But, even inside City Hall, look, we're still doing a lot of printing. Well, we should be having electronic displays. But I know that's a tall order to ask also. But those are the opportunities that we have missed. But again, rather than dwell on that, let's see what we can do now. And let's see how we can get to the 900,000. But thank you to Sandy and all of you here that are here today, and for your help. And let's get together and find money.
Ms. Aguilar, you want to speak something? Okay. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate it.
Gracias.
Norma Aguilar. Just this morning, I met with finance department, and one of the things that caught my attention in terms of discussion and analysis on the budget resolution and reserve policies. And in part, it says the proposed budget phases in this recommendation over the next 5 years by implementing an existing Measure H committee reserve policy, parentheses, September 2011 resolution 2011-99, which provides for the set aside of 10% of annual Measure H revenues towards an emergency fund balance reserve. I want to clarify that that is not the purpose and how it came about. because I think in another place it makes reference that it was something implemented by the OES, and it wasn't. It was something that the Measure H committee prepared as a resolution. We passed it, we put it on our agenda, we passed it, made a recommendation, and presented this resolution. The resolution was presented to the city council, and I'm not going to go through all the whereas, but I'm just going to go to the point that talks about the reserve, because I'm seeing that it's being tied to help balance and to see that there's emergency reserve monies there. But that is not the purpose for Measure H. Even though it funds some of those things, and you know, it's a long story. I could be here for an hour and not finish. But the whereas, the committee placed high priority on funding a reserve to be used as emergency funds to aid in the recovery process from a severe and devastating event such as a natural disaster. Whereas the General Tax Citizen Oversight Advisory Committee has recommended the City Council adopt a Measure H reserve policy to commit 10% of Measure H funds to the reserve specifically available to help mitigate the effects of natural disasters. And so then it was placed on the agenda, and it was approved on, I don't have the date right here, but in either case, this is a document that the City Council of the City of Calexico hereby adopts the Office of Emergency Services Measure H Reserve Policy. So we came up with that, not the OES came to the city and said, here, implement this. No, our original team of Measure H committee members came up with this. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike Davies was the one that got us this, you know, because he was a former police officer, so he knew about this type of stuff. So, and it was hereby adopts the Office of Emergency Services OES Measure H Fund Reserve Policy and designates 10% of all Measure H tax funds received be reserved as committed under the GASB 5.4 guidelines for said purpose. Passed, approved, and adopted the 20th day of September 2011. Okay? And so my little spidey sense and my little red flag comes up when we're talking about that. Over the next 6 years, the budget implements the committee's reserve policy to be set aside 10% of annual revenue to fund an emergency reserve. That's totally different from what the Measure H.
So Norma, have you guys met on the commission?
I'm sorry?
Have you guys met already? Have you met in your commission?
Well, I found out about my meeting too late, and I was already committed to be in somewhere else.
And then I guess my question is, have you talked about this issues and brought it up to the commission?
That has been my plea for the last year. I got appointed in April of last year, and I kept asking for meetings. The time that I asked for meetings, I wanted to meet, not to decide anything, simply to be able to share the information and the history with the rest of the committee so that they know what it is. It is a convoluted thing. This is actually, in my opinion, this was a travesty that happened to the citizens of Calexico, and in terms of like, they were misled about what this oversight tax would be. And then we wandered away from how it, we were trying to stick to the spirit of the law, because knowing that at any time the council can overrule. Honestly, and I appreciate your time and the conversation with me. But one of the things that you shared, like saying, okay, well, maybe we could have it and focus on this part of the budget, that focus on recreation. But really what it is, it's making you make a decision in a muzzle like a horse.
Yeah, that's what that is.
This is what you're going to do, this is what you're going to do. And that was not the intent, and I wanted to make that very clear. that the reserve policy that was proposed by Measure H and adopted by the City Council is for mitigating the effects of natural disasters, not to balance or ensure that our budget is stable. I don't have it in for the city. I just want it to be clear and transparent, and that has not happened for at least 8 years or more.
Ms. Aguilar, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I just have a quick question over here and also a quick comment over there. I don't understand this Measure H thing, because I can name to you 3 taxes right off the bat, including the first one that I've been asking for since like a year and a half, a vacant property tax downtown. There's so many new taxes. We can even just have another sales tax to balance the budget and just be honest about it. Say, citizens, we need another half a cent or whatever it was that raised Measure H. We need another one this time to balance the budget, and be very honest about it. And if the citizens say yes, well, they say yes, and if they say no, they say no. But it's incredibly irritating for me to hear that somebody in the finance department is telling you, the commission or the citizens, how to spend the money that was sold to you as if you were going to be in charge of it. And it's disingenuous, because if we need to stabilize the budget, either we get more revenue or we raise taxes on something else, but we're honest about the intentions. And I think that's the problem that you're highlighting. Is that correct?
Well, like I said, I am very grateful for the time allotted to me by both of you,
Mhm.
but I just need to share,
And
you know,
thank-
my,
and th-
my,
and th-
my,
and thank
my
you.
discomfort, and it is no attack, nothing
Sí, sí, sí,
on
sí,
you.
sí, sí.
It's just the way things happened, and we have to stop doing things or just turning a blind eye. That's why, that's why I came up here and talked about this. That's not what happened.
Sí.
It wasn't the OES that came to the city and said, hey, check this out. It was us. And knowing the politics of this city, we put it in a form of a resolution. Because once you approve a resolution, in order to retract that, then you have to have the majority of those people retract that, right?
Sí.
Right? We know where Robert's rules, right? Okay, so ahí está. It's right there, man. But and at the same time, I'm also,
cognizant.
yeah,
Sí,
and
of the
chagrined about the
situation.
fact that I don't want to do something that negatively impacts our citizens and interrupt services,
Mm-hmm.
affects public safety and those things. We just need to be honest and truthful about what has happened, and if that is what it is, that Measure H needs to supplement the budget, then be honest about it and say, hey, you know what? We'll accept your recommendations, but we're going to take the hits, we're going to take the fregazos and say, you know what? I'm sorry, we needed to balance the budget. Okay, I can respect that.
Sí.
But don't, and I'm not saying you did it, you're doing it. That don't circumvent, don't put a blind eye on it, don't tell me, it's purple when it's blue,
Of course.
So,
The question I had very quickly, Ms. Gabby, did we approve the new format of the minutes, the new action minutes that applies for commissions? At this point in time, are you required to be at every commission meeting?
I only go in when there's no
Yeah, each commission has somebody assigned to them, yes.
I only pinch it.
Okay, so like for example, her commission, the Measure H commission, they have a secretary within the commission, or is it city staff?
It's,
City staff.
Oh, okay, so city staff still has to go in there.
Yes.
Is there?
And let me point out, the Measure H bylaws stipulate that the Measure H secretary or chairperson meets with the finance director, because that is the person, that staff person assigned to Measure H.
Okay. My question is, for the purposes of the city clerk's department, is there any way that we can trust them to do their own minutes? Since we simplified them so much, is there any way that we can start telling the commissions, can you please write your own minutes and just trust them to go through that process, or is that dangerous, risky?
I think that if that question, honestly, we should make sure that we speak with the legal department
Sí,
on
por
that,
favor.
just to make sure that if it's a required position, and what are those requirements, so.
And just to tie that back to the budget, because it's a special meeting, we have to stay on topic. The only reason I ask that is because if you can have whatever city staff you're delegating to these commissions, come back to your department and get that off your shoulders, that would be nice.
I don't handle all the commission matters.
Yeah, that
Okay.
employee doesn't
Oh,
come from our
every
office.
department.
Whatever clerk, whatever secretary goes to those commissions, they handle those minutes.
But where does that secretary come from?
So it comes from the department. For example, if you
Oh,
had
okay,
somebody
okay,
from
okay.
planning department, for that commission, you have
Ah.
somebody from the planning department. For Measure H, we have somebody from the finance department that goes over there. Same thing with police commission, recreations.
Right. Well, it is structured that way because if you were to have your own commission secretary, they would have to come access to information, data, and all that big paperwork. And it's just it's structured so that the city staff can do it for the commission and schedule a meeting. Since we're dealing with transparency, and I know that's what we wanted to have, and I commend you for that because I know I've been a proponent for that, and it's up here. And I would like to see also to avoid misunderstandings and that thing that nobody told me, this is what happened, and we're talking about it 3 years later, it's like, right? So in retrospect, to help with that, I would like to have each chairman of a commission to come up here once a month maybe, give us a small little 3-minute talk. Hey, we have this, we got that, we need help, we need this, just to kind of read all the things so it won't become a problem.
I know, I was told that you had worked on some of that. I don't know if this has changed, but like I said, we were in existence during when there was a lot of turmoil on the council as well as off, and labor and all kinds of things. But one of the things that really concerned us was, and it led to long discussions about people's attendance. Okay, so each of you gets to appoint somebody. So sometimes appointments are a good choice, and sometimes they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the language of the commissions, it allows for a city council in the instance of an absence of a commission member to be able to sit in. That was an issue because how are you going to sit on an oversight committee? How are you going to oversee your own expenditures or oversee the recommendations that are going to come to you?
Yeah, of course.
And other changes that happened to the meetings, it went to quarterly meetings. And I understand the explanation because the revenues don't come in, but the input from the community doesn't come in on a quarterly basis. It comes in on a monthly basis. So it allows us to discuss it. It would allow us to be able to get up to date. I have bits and pieces that I saved and I've researched and I've kept a file, but there's no file that I know of that it says, okay, this is the binder of all the Measure H meetings, and these are all the actions. There's things that have happened here and there and here and there, and you need to take another look at it, how your commission replacement policy impacts, because this is not a commission, this is an oversight committee, and it oversees a tax revenue. And I'm sorry I took so much time,
Yeah.
but thank you.
I was just gonna say with that last point, the reason I'm bringing up the question about who writes the notes, who writes the minutes, is because that's the obstacle. Like if your commission, say that you're with a very impacted department, which you are, finance has taken the most cuts out of all the departments, right?
Right.
Some departments have more staff than others.
Right.
It doesn't make sense for your functionality to be tied to staffing levels. Right. If I remember when we had the COVID committee, I don't know if you were on the COVID committee. I told Gabby I'm just gonna do it myself through Zoom, tape it, and do my own minutes. Because that way, if I want to have a special meeting, I just call the special meeting. I don't have to city manager, make sure that there's a note taker, blah blah blah. So that might work for some commissions. I just want that to be an option so that you're never impeded due to the lack of city staff to have a meeting. Because like you say, the community input is
Right.
continuous and
Well,
emergencies
I
happen.
don't see why you couldn't, if you, that's the direction you want to go, you could clear, I would first, like it was mentioned, you have to clear it with
With
legal.
yeah.
But I don't see why a tape recorder couldn't be put in place, and then you have something to compare to the notes that your secretary for that commission or committee
And we
has,
just,
you know,
we,
and then you just,
yes, and we just changed the note structure. Now they're action minutes. So the only thing you have to write down on the minutes, and correct me if I'm wrong, is previously it would be the discussion, right? Norma Aguilar, minutes. Now it's a recording, which makes it very easy with Zoom, and then the action minutes, which is the motion was X, seconded by Y, the vote was this. Minutes on just the action. So if the committees were to take that on, it would be so much easier. Like, it's, almost a formality.
and where is it in writing?
What do you mean?
The minutes.
The action minutes? We approved
No,
it.
the discussion. A lot of it decisions hinge on discussion.
So the
So
reason,
at some point, those minutes should be transcribed for the general public. So say, for example, you have somebody that proposes what actions or recommendations the Measure H is, and they under the Freedom of Information Act, they request copies of those minutes. How are you going to provide those minutes?
so the way that it's done is they just get the recording. Like here it is. And very in a very near future, once we implement the IT plan, I hope to have transcription services so that you actually not only get a recording, but also transcription, which can be translated into, say, Spanish.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Of course.
Bye. You're next.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to read a little research I've read. America has the highest incarceration rate in the world, with 1.4 million people in prison and over 700,000 people in jails. Meanwhile, an estimated 3 million people annually are homeless. 26% of people in jail reported that they were homeless in the year prior to their incarceration, and 19.5% of the state prisoners reported being homeless, according to researchers.
How many percent? I'm sorry.
Which one?
Both of those about previously homeless?
26% of people in jail reported that they were homeless in the year prior to their incarceration, and 19.5% of state prisoners reported being homeless.
Oof.
The study focuses on affordable housing, which it defines as permanent housing that is affordable to persons making 80% of median income in the area, and its subset of supportive housing, which it defined as housing that provides on-site services to individuals in need of support to improve or maintain their health, independent living skills, income, employment, socialization skills, quality of life, and most important, maintain their housing. People who qualify for this type of housing may include the homeless, people with mental illness, and the elderly, and those with substance abuse problems, and those being released from incarceration. So that's a very common trend we have in our homeless population, just so you guys know. Give me a second. JPI acknowledged that people living prison are especially vulnerable to homelessness because they are banned from federal housing, face challenges reconnecting with family and friends, and the lack of funds to afford available housing. A California study cited that by JPI, which is JPI, so you know, the Justice Policy Institute, a California study cited by JPI reported that 50% of Los Angeles and San Francisco parolees were homeless in 1997. According to JPI, concluded that affordable and supportive housing for people who are released from prison can help, quotes, can help promote public safety and other positive social outcomes. So, to continue with that, I noticed that the budget had 33% in the police pie chart, meanwhile 1% in housing. So that's 150,000 as compared to 5.75 million. That's a huge percentage of scale. I didn't even want to do the math because it's just obvious that how much of a difference that is. But it's a common misconception that police improve or lower the crime rate, when in reality there's other avenues in funding where you can help those people in need. So, for example, housing, because one of the biggest issues in Calexico that I've noticed is that people have disturbances with people that are homeless and have mental illnesses and substance abuse history. So how can we help that? Well, we first of all help them be in their own space, which is housing. For example, we had a campesino camp on First Street in Andrade where we resisted and we kind of put a whole encampment site for people that were homeless. They were all workers, campesino workers, that they risked their lives every day in the summer or the cold winters, just to bring in money into the county, into the city, and into our freaking streets, you know? These people work. There's also people that can't work. I knew a man that, Pollito, he was a UFW fighter, he was a Chavista, but he was 83, Raúl, 80, por ahí. The last time I saw him was 6 months ago during the cold winter. But this is the population that we are mostly ignoring. The homeless, elderly, and sadly, drug users that they just live day by day, suffering, and until their passing comes. I don't know where Pollito is, God bless him, but I hope he's still alive. So here's my biggest takeaway from this pie chart. If we were to help those people, housing, and giving them support in any ways, resources. I know the Imperial Valley has a lot of support for homeless people. I know Calexico doesn't have that much support, but reach out, make that outreach happen so we can lower this this need for police, which is, because Camilo, I remember you were saying the overtime. Overtime costs a lot, and how do we stop people from working overtime? Well, we help them reduce the crime rate, the need for them to be in overtime. I know the firefighters, they have to respond to a lot of fires created by an unsheltered person because of an accident, an argument, or just plain out, just people trying to have some heat for the winter. Because I've seen a lot of fires being made, but they were controlled. Pero muchas veces es el fuego. You play with fire, you could get burned. And that's what happens a lot. Electrical wires and houses, como acá enseguida el Heffernan Memorial. That house that used to be, that house right next to it, which was so ironic to me, that it was a house that was just no one's, but people lived in it because they needed to. So $150,000 for a house, for housing, a house costs $300,000 in Calexico. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of are we buying just half a house, just the little tiny hotels around the area? So how can we help that housing need and affordable housing? Because people are moving out of Calexico, people are living in Mex, crossing the border all the time. So how can we help people not be homeless at the end? Because people are just one car crash or one house fire away from being homeless. And that's a fact. So I think this budget can be altered easily if you put 5% of this pie chart into housing and still give the fire and the police department their 30 or 29, 27%. You're going to see massive change around here. Sure, it's probably a lot of work that we have to put into it, but I think it's the thing we have to do. And más que nada, I know there's the departments are going to give a budget hearings or just, I don't know, I'm looking for a more itemized, detailed list of everything, because obviously if you're going to buy something, you're going to have the details of it. So just make it public, because seeing the 5.7 million, it just hurts to see just the number. I would like to see what's the investment. And to the conversation of the hybrid cars, a hybrid car is, to its name, hybridity, electricity, and gasoline. So you don't need to charge a hybrid car. A hybrid car, you just put gas, and it uses its electric motor / battery to use that electricity when you don't need the gas. So let's say, because I mean, I know most of the time the cop cars aren't like going through a high-speed car chase. So when you're patrolling, you're just cruising and making sure the community is safe. That's when you go to electric mode and you go 25 miles per hour, a gusto, without wasting any gas. My mom has a hybrid car, and it's a blessing. But these times in gas prices, and we're in California, so not to say that to keep the trend going with electricity, but more than anything, the gas prices are just horrible here. So how can we just compromise, right? Because those cars are still cars. They're cars to move stuff. I know gas is just very useful, but when it comes to electric vehicles, the torque is sometimes better. Estamos hablando de like, I don't know. I have been seeing a lot of older pickup trucks de la ciudad, and I understand. You got to change cars and machinery. Ambulance though, I feel like those wouldn't need to be gas powered. But when it comes to cop cruisers and all that, I think hybrid is no big deal to change into. And that's just coming from me. But, so yeah, this budget, general fund expenditures by program, it's very alarming. If people were to see this, and they'd be like, why is it just 1% for housing? And that 150,000, that itemized list, I'd like to see it too. Because if we multiply it times 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, people will notice. As compared to people always, like for the last year that I've been coming to, not half a year that I've been coming to these meetings, it's always about cops. It's always about cops. Y el fire department, sí, porque el fire department saves a lot of lives, you know? But it's just the need of where else can we support our community? Because you can put cops everywhere, but if there's no houses, there's still going to be homeless people roaming the streets, being at risk for themselves and for other people. So I encourage and I dare you to take a change. Thank you.
Okay, I move to adjourn at 7:15.
Thank you.
Thank you.